Well, let's now take you live to Washington for some reaction on the ground. Voice of America reporter Anita Powell is there and joins us now. Of course, Washington being a stronghold of Kamala Harris and her party. Anita, what has been reaction to the news?
I think you can imagine what the reaction has been here in Washington today at this news that Donald Trump performed spectacularly well against expectations in yesterday's election and that we have a result at this hour. I mean, it doesn't take a journalist to say that nobody doesn't have an opinion on Donald Trump. Everybody has an opinion on Donald Trump, and we are hearing those opinions from Americans and from the world today. So I think you can imagine what they are, and these are evocative of what we heard when he was the 45th president. So there's a lot of feelings in Washington today, but the fact is Donald Trump will be the 47th president, and America is going to continue on as always.
Well, of course, I mean, you've traveled with Kamala Harris's campaign people. And I mean, given the things that she also spent, I mean, the last hours of campaign there in Washington, why do you think she didn't resonate as much as many people thought she could, you know, with many Americans?
I think that's a question we're going to be unpacking, and the Democratic Party at large is going to be unpacking for months, maybe years to come. Why? That's a great question. Why didn't she have this broad voter appeal, considering this is a multicultural, pluralist nation, and she really worked to appeal to that side of America instead of, you know, what Trump was kind of promoting. The Make America Great Again theme was evocative of America's quote-unquote glory days, which were in the 50s and the 60s, which are, of course, not a great time for all people who lived in this country. So that's something we'll be figuring out. I can guess that one of the elements, of course, was controversy over the war in Israel. Or rather the war in Gaza, and there were a lot of Americans who didn't support the Biden and Harris administration's support of Israel. And I think also it's very possible that, I mean, if you look at Kamala Harris, if you look at Donald Trump, one of them is a man and one of them is a woman, and I think that was a fact that many voters took into consideration in the polling booth.
Well, of course, I mean, you went where Donald Trump was when the news broke. But what have reports been saying? What have colleagues been saying about that speech and, of course, the hours before then?
Well, I just want to highlight that about 6 journalists were blocked from access to Trump's watch party in Florida over coverage that they had done. Notably, one reporter was blocked because she exposed that a Trump campaign official was a well-known white supremacist operating under a pen name. So the journalist access to the Trump campaign, we've already seen that window close a little bit. And I think that's possible we might see that as he moves back into the presidency. But, you know, we saw a triumphant Trump who is very energetic and very motivated to continue the work of his 45th, of his first term, rather. And he's hammered on these issues of immigration, foreign policy, ending wars, and restoring the economy. And it remains to be seen how he's going to pull all of that off.
Of course, you're talking of him being triumphant. And the question on many people's lips right now is whether we're going to see a lot of triumphalism.
I mean, I think that decision rests solely with Donald Trump. And I think by now, America and the world knows Donald Trump pretty well, knows his character. So I think we all know what we can expect of the man and how he might behave in office. But at the end of the day, the American people elected Donald Trump resoundingly to do this job. The will of the American people is not to be underestimated, not to be scoffed at, not to be frowned upon, I suppose, because That is what the American people want. The American people here sent a message, not just to Donald Trump, but to other Americans and to the world, that this is what the majority of the American people want, Donald Trump as the 47th president.
And still no word from Kamala Harris on the back of Donald Trump's declaration.
No, we haven't heard from Vice President Harris yet. We also haven't heard, I was at the White House most of the day yesterday, we haven't heard anything from President Joe Biden yet. But of course, he was not running in this race, but we will expect to hear from Harris later today. And it will be interesting to hear what she has to say and how she frames her election loss. We're still watching, by the way, the other down ballot races and the balance of the House and the Senate, which are going to be really important to Trump as he takes over in the White House, because without a cooperative legislature, you can't get anything done. So that's a very important thing to watch, and we will see that unfold in the coming days.
Live from Washington, Voice of America's Anita Powell bringing us the latest.